Hello and welcome to The Underscore. I'm Rick Clark and you're listening to episode 6 of our journey into the world of film and television music. Today I'm especially excited because we're diving into a new album that feels both grandly historic and deeply personal. It's called Music from the Crown and it features London Music Works with a cellist, Nick Squires. This album, released on June 20th, 2025 by Silva Screen Records, is a sweeping collection of new orchestral performances celebrating the Emmy-winning Netflix series, The Crown. Now, The Crown isn't just any TV show. It's an award-winning drama that chronicles the reign of Queen Elizabeth II from the early 1950s all the way into the 21st century. Over 6 seasons, we've watched the Queen's journey through historical crises and intimate family moments. And through it all, the music has been our guide, cueing the grandeur of royal events, underscoring political intrigue, and illuminating the private struggles behind palace doors. This new album distills all that remarkable music into one experience. It spans compositions from all 6 seasons, offering fresh recordings of the score's most memorable pieces. For fans of the show and its music, it's like revisiting the royal saga with your eyes closed, letting the music alone tell the story. In this episode, we'll explore what makes Music from the Crown special. I'll start with a bit of context about the series itself and why music plays such a key role in its storytelling. We'll talk about the composers who crafted the score over the years, from the legendary Hans Zimmer to Rupert Gregson-Williams, Lorne Balfe, and Martin Fipps, each bringing their own touch as the show progressed. We'll hear how the musical style evolved from the majestic tones of the early seasons to the more introspective themes of the later years. So, whether you're a longtime Crown fan who can hum the opening theme by heart, or you're simply someone who loves a good film score, sit back and get comfortable. Imagine the screen fading to black, the orchestra tuning up, and that familiar Crown emblem appearing. Let's journey into the music of the Crown. From its very first episode, The Crown established itself as a story of dignity, duty, and human depth. And the music has been there at every step to reinforce those ideas. For anyone who might not be familiar, The Crown is a Netflix series that dramatizes the life of Queen Elizabeth II, starting from her unexpected ascension to the throne in 1952, after her father's death and following through the decades of her reign. It's a sweeping narrative covering major historical events like Churchill's tenure as Prime Minister, the Apollo moon landing, or the collapse of marriages and Soviet tensions, as well as intimate personal moments. Every 2 seasons, the cast changes to reflect the aging of the characters. A young queen and Prince Philip in the early seasons give way to older actors as the timeline moves forward. The rich tapestry of The Crown's music didn't come from a single mind, but from a royal lineup of composers, each contributing their style to different eras of the show. Let's talk about these musical architects and how each of them shaped the sound of the series across its 6 seasons. Hans Zimmer, a name almost everyone recognizes, was the one who set the tone from the very beginning. While Zimmer didn't score the episodes themselves, he composed the main title theme for The Crown. And what a theme it is! From the first ominous chords to the sweeping melody, it instantly announces the show's grandeur. Zimmer's theme feels weighty and regal. In fact, it was designed with a nod to British musical heritage. Listeners often catch an echo of composers like Purcell or Handel in its stately progression. For season 1 and season 2, the task of scoring every episode fell to Rupert Gregson Williams, with Lorne Balfe joining him in season 2. Both Gregson Williams and Balfe are highly accomplished composers in their own right. You might know their work from films like Wonder Woman or Mission Impossible, and notably both have roots in Hans Zimmer's camp. They've worked at Zimmer's remote control studios in Santa Monica, meaning they came armed with that cinematic, lush scoring approach that Zimmer popularized. And in The Crown's early seasons, Gregson Williams and Balfe crafted a score that truly soars. They took Zimmer's main theme as a launching point and created episodic music with a wide palette of sounds. In those first 2 seasons, their music had to cover a huge range. The youthful romance between Elizabeth and Philip, the political duels between Churchill and his successors, Princess Margaret's rebellious escapades, and the overarching weight of the young queen stepping into her role. Gregson Williams' score often employed sweeping strings and choral undercurrents to amplify the grandeur of scenes, but it also knew when to pull back for intimacy. One recurring approach was layering instruments, for example, starting a scene with a single clear melody, maybe a piano or solo woodwind, and gradually building it into a full orchestral swell as the emotional stakes rose. By season 3, as the show jumps forward in time and brings in a new cast to portray older versions of the characters, there was also a changing of the guard behind the scenes. Composer Martin Fipps took over scoring duties for seasons 3 and 4 and would continue through 5 and 6. Phipps is a British composer known for his work on period dramas and historical pieces, so he was a fitting choice as the story entered the 1960s, 70s and beyond. He brought a distinctly different flavour to the music while respecting what came before. Phipps's approach was more restrained and classical in some ways. He made use of the Chamber Orchestra of London for recordings, while giving the music a rich, authentic orchestral texture. His score can feel a bit more internalised, where early seasons sometimes wore emotions on their sleeve with bold melodies. Phipps often opted for subtler motifs, repetitive patterns, underlying throbs of tension, and poignant silence. One of Phipps's signature contributions was incorporating human voice into the fabric of the score. In season 4, for instance, there is a track titled Voices, which uses a wordless choir to haunting effect. It's as if the very ghosts of history or the murmurs of the public are woven into the music. The result is a sound that can be eerily intimate, almost spiritual. As the series tackled storylines like Queen Elizabeth's confrontation with Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher or Prince Charles and Princess Diana's troubled marriage, the music under Fipps emphasized the emotional undercurrents rather than big theatrical flourishes. He would often hold back until a crucial moment, and when the music finally swells, it carries an incredible emotional payoff. Listeners might remember, for example, the heartrending music in the episode Aberfan, as previously mentioned, or the tender motif when an older Elizabeth reflects on her younger self. Phipps's more minimalist, carefully placed score gave the later seasons a profoundly introspective atmosphere. It's music that doesn't overwhelm, but rather invites you to feel the emotion in the pauses and the quiet notes. Interestingly, Fipps himself has spoken about how he deliberately scaled back the use of music in The Crown's later seasons, using it only for the most significant character moments, which is why the season 3 to 4 soundtrack albums had fewer tracks than earlier ones. This less is more strategy meant that when music does enter, you as a viewer truly notice it. It's a bold choice that reflects confidence in the power of a single well-placed cue. And it contrasts with the earlier seasons where music was perhaps more continuously present in the background. So across the 6 seasons of The Crown, we've had a fascinating evolution. Zimmer's majestic theme, Gregson Williams and Balfe's lush cinematic early scores, and Phipps's nuanced, introspective later scores. Each composer passed the baton to the next, much like the historical timeline passes The Crown from one era to another. They all contributed to a cohesive musical narrative, yet each era's score has its own character. This new album, Music from The Crown, smartly showcases that evolution. In fact, it's performed by the acclaimed ensemble London Music Works and features expressive cello solos from Nick Squires, spanning all 6 seasons and tracing the series' musical journey from those early majestic sounds to the later introspective themes. That's straight from the album notes, and it perfectly encapsulates what we've just discussed. We've journeyed through the halls of Buckingham Palace and the windswept moors of Scotland with these pieces, and by now it's clear how much the music of The Crown enriches the storytelling. Now, let's turn our focus back to the album music from The Crown itself, and what makes this new recording truly special. In a world where you can already stream the original soundtracks from the show, you might wonder, why a new album of of these pieces? The answer lies in the fresh perspective it offers, the chance to hear the score anew, with all the cinematic polish of a modern recording and the unique presence of Nick Squires' cello. Perhaps the most exciting thing about music from The Crown is simply the opportunity it gives us to appreciate the score in a new light. When you watch a TV series, especially one as engrossing as The Crown, the music is there to serve the drama, you're paying attention to dialogue and acting, and the music works its magic somewhat subliminally. By listening to the music on its own, especially in these polished new performances, you start to notice just how much thought and artistry went into it. Maybe you'll recall a scene and suddenly realize, that's why I felt so emotional. The music was doing a lot of the work, or you might gain a new appreciation for a track that you overlooked before. So this collection also helps bring some of those hidden gems to the forefront as it covers highlights across all seasons. To wrap up, music from The Crown by London Music Works and Nick Squires is a triumph in representing a beloved score. It's both nostalgic and new. It reminds you why you fell in love with the show's music in the first place, and it lets you hear details and interpretations you might not have heard before by tracing the music from the beginning of Elizabeth's reign to the modern day. It also kind of tells her story all over again, but purely through sound. And what a story it is, full of pomp and pageantry, yes, but also full of heartache, courage, and change. Modern cinematic polish makes it feel like these could be themes from a grand film saga. Yet the intimacy of the cello keeps it personal and human. That balance is exactly what The Crown as a series always achieved too. The big picture of history and the small picture of one family. Thank you for joining me on this royal musical tour. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into music from The Crown. I certainly had a splendid time revisiting these pieces and reflecting on how they capture the soul of the show. If you haven't heard the album yet, do check it out. Maybe brew a cup of tea, pretend you're in a palace armchair, and let the music sweep you away. This is Rick Clark signing off. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on The Underscore.